Welcome to the NAIOP Southern Nevada February Breakfast Program. I'm Cassie Catania Sue with CBRE and also your 2024 NAIOP Southern Nevada President. Good morning to everybody in attendance here and also everybody on Zoom. For all of you here in the room, please write down your questions on the pads in front of you. Is Tutland. All right. Tutland and his esteemed committee will walk around and gather the questions during the program. Q&A will start at 9 a.m. and today's program will conclude at 9:15. Today we have a star-studded audience that includes some very special guests. I'm taking this out. I would like to recognize our elected officials that are in the attendance today. I will call your name. Please stand to be recognized. Councilwoman Victoria Seaman with City of Las Vegas. Councilman Jim Seabuck, City of Henderson. We would also like to recognize all of our UNLV students attending today. If all of our UNLV students will please stand. These are all students looking to enter commercial real estate, so make sure you introduce yourself. Now let's take a moment to honor our President's Circle sponsors. They are a critical component to the success of our NAIOP chapter. This year we have 4 platinum sponsors. Special thank you to each one. Cox Business has supported our chapter for 21 years. Thank you. Gatsky Commercial Real Estate since 2022. Thank you. Martin Harris Construction since 2001. Thank you. And Schnitzer Properties since the turn of the century in 2000. Thank you. We'd also like to thank our gold sponsors, Howard Hughes, Kimley Horn and Associates, Majestic Realty Company, Nevada General Construction, Panatone Development Company, Prologis, and Southern Nevada Water Authority. Thank you. Now please check the screen as we acknowledge our silver sponsors, our bronze sponsors, and our copper level President's Circle sponsors. Thank you. If you are not yet a 2024 President's Circle sponsor, don't wait. Please reach out to myself, Rod Martin, or Lisa Brady for more information. Thank you. NAIOP runs because of the high quality of the organization's committees and all of the volunteers that give very many hours every year to our organization. Thank you to all of our committee members, again, for everything that you do to support our organization. At this time, I would like to ask the committee members to come up and make their announcements.
I'll go way down. I don't want to, because then you got to lower for everybody else.
Now you can just take a seat then.
I know, exactly. I don't want it to lower down. Good morning. My name is Matthew Weinberger. I'm with Martin Harris Construction. I'm Vice Chairman of the DLI Committee. The 2024-2025 DLI class is starting in the fall. Applications were going to be open in March, and they'll be due in July. The applications will be able to be accessed on the website, but also there'll be an email coming out soon with a link to the applications as well. The classes are for members of NAIOP who are 35 and younger. If you'd like more information about the DLI class, you can come talk to me, our chairwoman, Dina Marcello, or you can go to John or Katrina and they'll give you more information about the upcoming class. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tanya Gottesman with CBRE. Our 2024 Developing Organizational Leadership Institute is accepting applications for 2024 class. They're due February 26th. I was I did Dolly last year. It's a great it's a great program where you can meet other people within the industry that you may not be in contact with every day on a day-to-day basis. You do not have to have graduated DLI to be on this organization or program. You learn about professional skills. You also learn about the NAIOP and how to be more involved. And it's just a great organization for outside leadership. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Guy Gugino with MidFirst Bank. The NAIOP 32nd Annual Golf Tournament is Friday, May 17th at Paiute Golf Resort. The theme this year is Battle of the Bands. Everyone's been really generous, but we are still looking for some sponsors. We do have a couple game sponsors left. We have the ride share, and we have plenty of tee boxes available for you. Foursomes at this time are only available to sponsors, and we're also looking for volunteers. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Gaetana Cafaso, Burke Construction for NAIOP Spotlight Awards. So if you have not bought your table yet or your sponsorship, tomorrow is the last day to buy that. We are 3 weeks out. The event is Saturday, February 24th at Red Rock Casino. So be sure to secure that. Our theme is NAIOP All Paris, and it is theme colors are pink, white, gold, and black. Cocktail attire. Thank you.
Last day for sponsorships tomorrow.
Tomorrow, all right. I better get my act together and get a sponsorship. Art Green, Geotechnical Environmental Services, and I'm part of the membership committee. If you were not at last month's membership mixer, you were the only person that wasn't there maybe. So I want to encourage you to go to more events like that. If you're a new member, we're having our new member coffee tomorrow. If you need more information, you can come to me. I'll be one of the last ones walking out as usual. And I want you to save the date. May 2nd, we're going to once again pack the deck on third base at an Aviators game. This is one of the few events where you can actually be a sponsor of NAIOP for the low amount of $500. And you know what? If you have interest in doing that, you can come talk to me too. So please keep me company after breakfast, become a sponsor, and go to tomorrow's new member coffee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great announcements. And yes, anybody in the room that has not done DLI or Dolly, please see one of us to tell you more about it. Both are great, very exceptional programs that will help with your career trajectory, personal and professional development. And is Jen Levine in the room? Where is she? What's the best class ever, Jen? Oh, okay. I thought it was 2018. My bad. Okay. Just making sure. Thank you to all of our committee chairs and members for your hard work and dedication. And we are always accepting new committee members. So if you would like to join and banter with Jen and I, please see us. Now I'd like to take a moment to recognize all of our new members. If you are a new member of NAIOP, please stand and welcome to NAIOP. Thank you. I know every month we recognize new members, which are critical to the growth and success overall of our organization. However, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to recognize the longstanding members. I myself have looked to many of our longstanding members for guidance throughout my career, and so I would like to take a moment to recognize all of the members of NAIOP Southern Nevada for over 20 years. So if your name is on the slide, which there are so many, please stand and be recognized for a moment for all that you have done for NAIOP Southern Nevada. Woohoo! Awesome, thank you. I'm going to continue with Reed's tradition of honoring a committee member at every breakfast. I know that the board does get continual recognition throughout the year, but I have worked tirelessly on several committees throughout NAIOP before joining the board, and I do think it's very important and, again, critical to the success of our organization. There are so many amazing committee members that give so much time and dedication to this chapter. And today, I would like to take a moment to recognize somebody very special to me personally, Gaetana Cafasso, if you could please stand. Gaetana Cafasso is with Burke Construction Group, and she joined NAIOP in March of 2017, and she jumped right into being a very integral part of the Spotlight Awards Committee, which she chairs for me now. And this year, she has picked up a lot of the slack for me when I was stretched a little too thin. And so I would like to tell her thank you very much. You are not only so creative, but you help overall with all of the design. And you've done the program for many years. You co-chaired it before taking over officially. You've helped me with the workshops, countless meetings, deadlines, and you were also a graduate of DLI in 2020 and recently got a promotion last week, and I think 7 years now in the industry. So very exciting, love watching you grow, and I would just like to take a moment to thank you for all that you do for NAIOP Southern Nevada. And for me too. NAIOP Southern Nevada is currently 724 members strong and ranks in top 10 of NAIOP national chapters. We have been, if you've been a member for over 10 years, I don't think we didn't do that one. We'll do that one next month. We're also going to recognize you. But if you're not a member, you should join. As you saw on the slide, there was over 100 names of people that have been members for 20 plus years. We do strive every year to continually find value for new members and longstanding members. If you have any questions about membership, please see Micah. Where are you, Micah? Micah. See Micah if you have any questions about joining if you're not a member today. And if you're on Zoom, you probably can't see that, but you should be here in the room anyways. So. Now I'd like to take a moment to thank our 2024 breakfast meeting sponsors. Thank you to American Nevada Realty, Carpenter Sellers Delgado Architects, Cox Business, Gatsky Commercial Real Estate, Martin Harris Construction, McCarthy Building Companies, Inc., NV Energy, R&O Construction, Southern Nevada Water Authority, Southland Industries, and our breakfast Wi-Fi sponsor, Schnitzer Properties. Thank you. And a special thank you to this morning's breakfast sponsor, McCarthy Building Companies. I'd like to introduce Paul Dzinski from McCarthy Building Companies. Paul oversees their construction operations in Nevada. Throughout his 24-year career, he has managed work in design build, construction management, and general contracting capacity. His resume is comprised of a diverse portfolio of projects from hospitality, gaming, entertainment, healthcare, education, transportation for commercial and industrial markets. Key projects he's worked on includes Allegiant Stadium, Circa, UNLV's parking expansion, Spring Valley Hospital, and the Harry Reid International Airport Terminal 3, one of the largest in the state of Nevada. Welcome to the stage, Paul.
I don't need the stage. I can stay down here. It's fine. But so for those of you that don't know us at McCarthy, we've been building in town for over 40 years in the large general contractor kind of space. We're very diverse in what we do, and we pride ourselves on that, from our projects in healthcare and parking, our partners at UNLV, our hospitality portfolio, along with the recent Allegiant Stadium. And so happy to be here. Love that we can support NAIOP, Chapter of the Year. So cool to see all the things going on. Our work kind of goes beyond our construction, and it's really part of our involvement in the community that we love. Our Hard Hats group, which is kind of our community arm that gives back, and just being a part of that. And also really proud of our work on Allegiant Stadium in regards to kind of the diversity and inclusion, the small local businesses, and a lot of the things that we can support that's gaining a lot of traction here in the Southern Nevada market. So just want to thank NAIOP for the opportunity to be here. Hopefully the panel is exciting this morning, and thank you to all of our industry partners out there, our architect friends, subcontractors, environmental services, all of you that we see here that help support our business. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul, and thank you again, McCarthy. Connie, I think that was a challenge. She said, I hope the panel's interesting this morning. That's on you, girl. I have no doubt, though, in you. So let's get on with today's program. If I have not yet thanked our amazing programs committee, I would like to take a moment to thank them now. Thank you very much, because I know I've also driven you crazy so far this year. Only 10 more months of me, don't worry. And again, don't forget, if you have questions throughout, please write them down on the pad of paper. Dan and I can help too. We'll be walking around collecting questions for the end. We will start Q&A at 9. I'm very excited today about our all-star cast, and I will let Connie introduce them, but I would like to take a moment to introduce our moderator today. Connie Brennan is the publisher, CEO, and owner of Nevada Business Magazine. She and her husband have owned the magazine since its inception. She is a Las Vegas resident since 1978 and also a UNLV graduate. Connie is involved in the community and a past board member of Opportunity Village and NAIOP Southern Nevada, serving on various committees, including the Bus Tour and the Spotlight Awards. Connie and her husband have 10 children, 4 of whom were adopted from the Philippines, and over 20 adorable grandchildren. I am honored to consider Connie a personal friend, and if you are interested, you can hear all about her 12 Watusis in Texas. They are quite entertaining. Welcome to the stage, Connie Brennan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where do you want to sit? You want to hear
You're
it?
a rock star.
Give it to you, girl.
So am I on? So good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I'm going to ask our panelists to come on up because I'm pretty lazy this morning. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Thanks for the kind introduction, Cassie. I love that lady. And to McCarthy for sponsoring this morning. The magazine has been covering commercial real estate since our inception. In fact, and that was 35 years ago. In fact, it's the only industry that has a dedicated section every month for commercial real estate. My husband's a developer. I've got a couple kids that are commercial brokers, and they constantly remind me that it's much easier to report on it than it is to actually do it. And I would agree with that. I have the utmost respect for people in commercial real estate, especially those that do it with class and integrity, like our panelist here this morning. So we have 3 professionals that are seasoned, and we're going to be talking about finance, investments, building and development, brokerage. And I'm going to allow each of them to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to throw an introductory question out, and that question is, lately, what are you spending the most brain power on, and what keeps you up at night? So we're going to start with my friend Kevin.
Thanks, Connie. Am I on? Yes? Yes, good. Kevin Burke, I'm the CEO of Burke Construction Group. This is actually our 40th year here in the Valley. I'm also one of the 3 development partners at Matter Real Estate Group, the developers of Uncommons here in town. Let's see, brain power. I would say last several years it's really been about growth and how we can fuel growth with talent. Most recently, I would say starting to think about AI and the nature or the aspects of that, how it will help and disrupt our industry. What keeps me up at night? Boy, that's a long list. I would say, most at the top of that list, I would say would be execution risk. If you think about our industry, and when I say the industry, the architectural, engineering, and construction industries, we've been on this very long expansionary run since about 2011, and add some weight to that. So in U.S. in 2011, we did about $800 billion in all construction. So that would be residential, commercial, and infrastructure. We'll close out 23 in the U.S. at about $2 billion. So if you look at that long expansionary growth, it's been hard to recruit people into our space. So the execution risk today is a challenge, and I would say our industry total is a bit fatigued at this point. So I think as we look out, it's starting to get better because the interest rates are going to put some cooling effects on development and construction, but that's certainly one of the things that keeps me up at night.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Brendan Keating. I am a co-managing partner of Boston Omaha Asset Management, which is our asset management business. We raise capital from third-party partners alongside of our own and invest capital in commercial real estate, whether we're purchasing assets or placing hard money loans or higher interest loans. And then my other job, but less hours of this other job, is the chairman of Logic Commercial Real Estate. We started Logic about 8.5 years ago, and Jeff Jacobs, who's here today, now runs that for us. And I say as the chairman, it's kind of like being the grandpa of the business, where I can come in and like offer suggestions, but I don't have to actually do the work. I'm there to help facilitate and guide without having the hands on the operation. What keeps me up at night? We are in our asset management business. We're currently we will be raising our 5th fund here in 2024. So just thinking about kind of the expansion of our family office network. When you're raising capital, you kind of have your friends and family, then you have your high net worth individuals, and then you have family offices who are essentially high net worth individuals that have made enough that they now have people that manage their money that are their own employees, and then you have institutional capital. So those are kind of the buckets of capital, and I'm just really thinking through a lot of that on the process of raising that capital and who we speak to and structure and all that. But that's probably what keeps me up at night.
I'm Sebastian Torres. Good morning. Thank you for having me. I am a mortgage banker at CommCap Advisors. I've been there for 7 years in the loan production commission side for the last 4 years. At times it can feel like a little bit longer because my first year was 2020, which was a tough year to go from salary to commission in the finance world with COVID to start that. But luckily, 21 and 22 were strong. I got to see a taste of the good life then, and then last year, right back down to earth. It was a tough year for finance, but luckily, I work on a team with Kyle. He's been in the industry for 20 years. I got to see and work with him on the deals that he gets to work on, structure, negotiate terms, things like that. So great learning process, but already feels like I've seen 2 cycles in the short time that I've been in the industry. Brain power, there's a pretty big game coming up. San Francisco's -1.5. They're favorites versus the Chiefs. Can they beat Patrick Mahomes and Taylor Swift's boyfriend? I don't know. So I'm waiting to see what happens there. I don't know if you guys have any Super Bowl picks. That wasn't in the list of questions that came up, but thinking about that. But no, seriously, it's more of, right now we're fortunate. We have such a wide range of deals we're looking at. We have a self-storage conversion deal in Boston where we're quoting. We have an industrial/office deal, bridge request in San Jose, and I air quote industrial. I think there's one roll-up door in there somewhere, so I'm going to call it industrial because office is tough right now. And then we have just the general food groups of multi-tenant industrial, single-tenant industrial, unanchored retail, shadow-anchored retail. It's just, that is taking up a lot of brain power right now. It's a good problem to have, a lot better than last year, but that's taking up a lot of room. And what keeps me up at night consistently would be my 4-year-old daughter asking for another story or another hug, or she's got to go to the bathroom. But professionally, the Black Swan event, what are we not looking at? I feel like everybody has a hawk eye on unemployment rates, job growth, GDP, interest rates, obviously. What are we not seeing, though? In 2007, everybody thought home mortgages were the safest investment you could make. And then in 2008, you see what happened. In 2019, was anybody talking about COVID? No. So what are we not looking at is what concerns me, because all these other metrics, everybody's watching that. So that's what I think.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So from a high altitude, what are your expectations for this year for commercial real estate? I mean, I guess what's the state of the industry right now today? And Kevin?
Yeah, I would, from a construction standpoint, keep in mind we're the tail. So even though with these high interest rates and the architectural billing index, which tracks architectural billings, is starting to cool off a bit, we're still expected in the U.S. to grow somewhere to 5 to 7%, and then in 25 it starts to flatten out. But keep in mind it flattens out at a very elevated level. So even though that may be no growth, it's still substantially higher than it was back in kind of the belly of coming out of the GFC.
Before you go, does the presidential election have any effect on that? On your industry?
There are some electeds here. I would simply say no. I don't think it really affects the financial markets or our market when you just look past the theatrics that are going on today.
Thanks. Brendan.
Yeah. Thanks, Connie, for that question. Appreciate that.
We're up here to talk politics, right?
Yeah.
Or Super Bowl.
Apparently,
We can't talk
yes.
Super Bowl.
I don't know. When I think about 24, I think back to previous cycles, and I feel like we're going to have some decent price discovery in 2024. When you look at the transaction volumes, when you compare, let's just back up for a second. If you look at first half of 2022 compared to last half of 2023, transaction volume in Las Vegas was down like 75%. And so when you had when you had interest rates, if you look at the 10-year Treasury over that period of time, in the first half of 22 was about 2.5%, and the last half of 23 was about 4.5%. So with the rise of interest rates, everybody's like, oh shit, what's my property worth now? And in commercial real estate, unlike publicly traded securities where you have a mark-to-market every day, I mean, I looked this morning before coming in here, and Google had traded 4 million times by 7:30, and the market's open at 6:30. In commercial real estate, you could have an office building in Summerlin that maybe you have 5 trades a year to go mark to market. And so it just takes a while for the changes of interest rates or COVID or the great financial crisis to really show up to what the value of your asset is. And the nice part about real estate is you could fill in on your personal financial statement whatever you think it's worth, and nobody knows until you go to sell it. And you don't have to sell it if you have long-term fixed rate debt on it. And so I think 24 will be a good year for kind of price discovery. I heard the word last year that I never heard before, of neutral leverage, where if you're buying a 5.75% apartment, you can get 5.75% debt at the time, and you're just hoping on rent growth, which I don't think is a great investment philosophy when rental rates have ran 30% in that asset class. But so anyway, that's what I'm hoping for this year, is a bit more price discovery, but it just takes time to really have true price discovery, and I think rates are going to determine that.
Yeah, I would say to start this year, for us, we're very busy, and so are the other lenders that we speak with, whether that's CMBS, Life Insurance Company. They all have very full pipelines to start and are trying to get as much money out as they can. They all had bad years last year too. I mean, I think the finance industry was down 70 to 80% for the most part as well when it comes to originating loans. So everybody is trying to make hay while we can. And our pipeline is pretty full into the summer, it looks like at this point, with quoting and offering term sheets and refis coming up that we're already working on now based on where rates are. For the back half of the year, I don't know. It'll depend on if we do get rate cuts starting in June and maybe 25 basis points every meeting thereafter. That would be about 100 to 150 basis point reduction in the Fed funds and the prime rate. So we'll see if that can help keep momentum going. But obviously there are some things in the back half that are unknown, so we'll kind of see what happens. But I can tell you that Kyle and I, for our goal, we are shooting for 2022 numbers. And so far, it looks like we are on track to do that. But again, I don't know what the back half of the year looks like, and that's where we'll really see what happens. And truthfully, if we can just get a 10-year Treasury that stays around 4%, obviously lower would be better, but if it just stays around 4%, where cost of capital, people can understand, investors, borrowers, tenants, everybody can kind of understand what it's going to cost to borrow, that helps greatly. Even if it does go down, going down quickly or going up quickly, both are a problem because people don't understand what they're doing. And if it's going down quickly, they're not going to do anything because it's just going to go down more tomorrow. And same thing vice versa if it goes up. So we just need some stability, and I think 2024 could end up being pretty good.
Nice. And Sebastian, since you brought up the Super Bowl,
yeah.
I'd like to talk sports and what kind of an impact, now that we're a sports town, has that had on commercial real estate?
Yeah, I would say for us, again, we work with most lenders that are out of the Midwest, Pacific Northwest, East Coast, so they're not here in Las Vegas. And when I first started 7 years ago, and that's not even that long ago, but we had to put together sheets, we called them Economy at a Glance, that explained, here's the traffic through McCarran, Harry Reid Airport, here's the gambling winnings, here's all the things that are happening in town. having professional sports has legitimized Las Vegas to the rest of the country. Whether that's real or not, it still has, at least from the aesthetic and the impact of other people looking at Las Vegas, it has helped greatly. And we don't really have to sell Las Vegas anymore in these meetings with the lenders that are across the country and are not in Las Vegas. We used to have to do that every year. We have a finance conference coming up next week, and we'll be talking to all of our lenders. And I don't think we need to sell Las Vegas as hard. We're not going to prepare that same sheet that we usually always handed out, and whether that ended up getting looked at or thrown in the trash later, I don't know. But we don't have to sell anymore, and I think that's what sports teams have helped with.
Yeah, I think it definitely has brought much more focus. Everybody I speak to out of market wants to talk to me about the sports. I do, though, still believe Las Vegas is a cyclical market, and we haven't changed that. When you look at the definition of sports tourism, it's tourism. But I do think it's better than it was in the great financial crisis. But I think when I talk to people about this, and they always ask me this question, or we'll just be chatting about it, a lot of times people will kind of tell you what they want to hear. So if you're a developer, like, you're like talking rate cuts. If you're a value add investor, you're like, let's go up. Like, it's like everybody has their own philosophy, and we just look at the stats. And as I mentioned, when you look at these time periods, like if you look at 2022 versus 23 transaction volume, and really 22 really started to turn off as they started raising rates in March of 22. The U.S. was down 60% in transaction volume for commercial real estate. Well, you look at Las Vegas, we were down 75%. So clearly we're more cyclical still than the United States. And then you look at Reno, another market that we invested and have a Logic office in, and Reno was down like 45%. So you could say that Reno is less cyclical than the overall market. But I do think it definitely helps. It brings great capital to town. It brings high net worth spenders to town. Obviously, we never saw the pricing of homes that we have today. It helps, and it's a step in the right direction, but I don't think we're all of a sudden Omaha, Nebraska for stability.
Kevin, you want to address the sports question?
I just want to know when we're going to get the NBA. Look, when I moved here,
Sebastian, he probably knows that.
Well, when I moved here, go ahead. When I moved here, there was professional highlight at Valley, so I'm dating myself a bit. So it is. We are levitating in this city in terms of the experience economy we have created. I mean, we are. I mean, just think of the MSG Sphere, Formula One, and now the Super Bowl. Who would have ever thought that was possible here? So. Cities wait a lifetime to get those three events, and we have them literally in 6 months. So it is a super exciting time to be here in this economy, in this city.
So, Brendan, you brought up that commercial real estate cyclical. Can you compare the cycle we're in now to the previous cycle?
Sure. So there's an old saying that like market cycles don't often have the same story, but they tend to rhyme. And who knows what if this is a slight cycle, if this is a major cycle, who knows? You just the definition of the future is uncertainty. You don't know. But when I think about it, so in last cycle, in September of 2008, Lehman Brothers fell. And that was really like the start of like, things were like getting rough in late 07, early 08. But once that happened, people were like, okay, the show's over. But in the properties after that period really weren't performing well. I mean, you had tenants not paying rent. You had high vacancies in shopping centers and office buildings and you just had a lot of fundamental real estate issues that you don't have today. And so transactions just shut off in 2009. But interestingly enough, when I look back at the data from like 06 to 09, transactions went down in Las Vegas about 80%, and transactions in the time periods I just quoted went down like 75%, but it felt so much slower in 09. And I think the base, kind of like you mentioned the construction numbers, the base of transactions, it was just a different base volume. But the biggest difference was I think the properties were not operating well, and there was no financing. So every single deal was a cash bid. There was no like, well, we're going to go get debt from this lender, and their rates are a little higher than they used to be. And so when everything's valued for cash, property values just plummeted. Where today there's financing in the market, and the operational, the financials of the asset are actually operating better. But I think about the time frame it took. So then you go forward in March of 2010, we sold our first non-performing loan, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like finally we have a transaction again. And then in late 2010, some things started happening, but it really was 2011 was the bottom of the market for pricing discovery and transaction volume. And then from there, it just kind of worked through REOs and short sales, et cetera. But so you take that time period, and it took about 3 years to get from the event till the bottom. And so then I compare that to today, and is it going to take 3 years? Is it that bad? I don't think it's that bad, obviously. But the nice thing you have today is you have financing. It's just more expensive. Now, banks are, I'll call, shy. And it's not so much that they're shy about the commercial real estate. It's about capital. And when you run a bank, you have to watch your capital, because if you have a bad loan out there, let me back up for a second. Banks are leveraged at 10 to 1. So if we all want to start a bank, we put $10 million each, we have $40 million. We'll be allowed through bringing in deposits to go lend $400 million on commercial real estate or whatever it is that we lend on. So if you start to have losses in that, or you have expected losses, you have to reserve capital so that your ratios don't go out of whack, where the FDIC comes in and puts orders on you. And so the banks are worried about that, and that's why they're not just throwing money out like crazy. They're wanting to keep their capital on hand. But anyway, I say lending is just a bit more shy than it was before, but it's not gone away like it went away in 2009.
So how does this market compare to the rest of the nation? And Kevin, I know, are you still in North Dakota, by the way?
We are, indeed.
Launched a magazine in North Dakota, got on a plane, and there's Kevin doing work up there. It gets 40 below. No, thank you. So as Nevada, how do we differ from the rest of the nation?
Well, outside weather, I would say, we have built in a lot of different locations, from Washington State all the way to New York, Chicago, New Jersey, the southern states, and Texas. And I would say, and I know we complain at times about entitlements and permitting and that, but I would say if you travel and you build and develop in other locales, we are blessed here. Now, look, is it perfect? Absolutely not. But go try to get a project entitled in California, or in particular in Austin, where they're so backed up on permits. So I think, look, it can be getting better, but we are very fortunate to have a pro-growth, pro-business economy here in Nevada.
So Sebastian, let's talk a little bit about capital and the market rates, and what are you seeing now?
A huge range of different availability of capital, interest rates, things like that. But so when it comes to banks, I know we talk about them, not being as open to lending these days, and that's true. And in the case that they aren't willing to, we have life insurance companies. There are CMBS lenders, and if you're looking at unstabilized asset, you have bridge and you have debt funds, like Brendan mentioned. Life insurance companies are pretty aggressive right now. They are generally known for conservative loans. They're low leverage, but the best interest rates you can find. Right now, their spreads over the Treasury are anywhere from 165 basis points to 225, which basically means you're a high 5% interest rate or a low 6% interest rate from them. CMBS lenders, they are on the other side of things, very aggressive. They can structure around almost anything. Their biggest pitch right now is full-term interest-only options. They have 5-year full-term and 10-year full-term options that are completely interest-only. If cash flow is the most important thing to you, they can focus on that. And their spreads they just recently came in as of this month. They're kind of competing with life insurance companies almost. They're 225 to 250 range, so mid-sixes interest rates for them. Last couple of years, they've been 1% to 1.5% above life insurance companies, just because of these are secondary markets. They feel like a loan, but they're really just a financial instrument that's put together, and your specific retail property is just a small square in a box of $1 billion worth of loans, and so that's just sold off in the secondary market. But I do want to say, with banks and local and regional banks, we did 50% of our business last year with banks. Now, it wasn't a lot of business, it was down 80%, but we still have done a lot with banks. And I say wide range because you can have banks that are no longer lending, or either saying that with their interest rate that they're no longer lending. We also have banks that are extremely competitive right now, and maybe they're just trying to take advantage of everybody else being on the sidelines. I don't know the inner workings of the banks and how their depository structure is set up and the strength of them, but they can be in the low 6% interest rate range or in the mid 6s. I mean, they're just as competitive. Is it harder to find? Absolutely. But is it there? Also, still yes.
So there's been a little bit of chatter about banks slowing down or stopping funding commercial real estate projects. So what would be the options if they did?
Yeah, so that would be those life insurance company and CMBS lenders for the permanent, stabilized assets. And again, if you're looking for something that is not stabilized, say your property is 50% occupied, or you're looking for construction and a bank is saying no, there are debt funds and construction lenders that they're higher cost. They're going to be somewhere in the 9 to 13% range. We're working on a construction deal right now where I have two very different options. I have a bank option for that client at 7.25% interest rate for the construction of that deal. And then also looking at debt funds, it's 13% for that. And depending on the project, 7% may be too high for that project to pencil. But also 13% could work because they want to move quickly. They don't want necessarily some of the red tape that comes with banks and committee approval and things like that. So there are other options with banks. Usually they're slightly more expensive on the unstabilized property types, but life insurance companies don't have deposits. They're lending out premiums that people are paying every month, and then they have actuaries telling them their yields need to match when they're going to have payouts, and so they don't have the same structure and concerns with that banks do. So there's other options available.
So Brendan, you wear a lot of hats. You do a lot of investments, brokerage stuff. You're all over the place. When you're looking at an investment property, what are the top 3 boxes that you need to check?
Yeah, so we purchased 50 assets in the last 12 years. And when you look back at what kind of characteristics those assets had, first it goes into the market. And we get into a market, we understand it really well. Obviously, I was born and raised in Las Vegas and grew up in the brokerage business here. So I feel like I could drive by a shopping center and be like, that shopping center was always vacant. And somebody could come in from out of town and be like, oh, there's a Target there. This is a beautiful shopping center. I'll pay $300 a foot for it. And so when you have that knowledge being on the ground in the market, it's just so crucial to our game of investing. And so we understand a market first. So Reno, we spent a lot of time in Reno before we started investing capital there. If we find a third market we like, we're going to spend a lot of time there before we start investing. So market first, being market expert and understanding that. Second is buying below replacement cost. So we're big margin of safety investors, and the best margin of safety we can have is if we buy an office building for $200 a foot, and we know to replace that asset's $400 a foot, we have a 50% margin of safety against somebody buying the piece of land next to us and developing. And then we also not only know replacement costs, we know the basis of our neighbors. So if I'm in at $200 a foot on an office building and I know my neighbors are in at $300 a foot and things go bad and we're having like a rate fight because office is a commodity product, then I can win. And we keep our debt low, which also helps you win. And so replacement cost is a big one. And then a problem you can fix. And again, that's just, I think, through experience of being in the business and leasing a lot of shopping centers, office buildings, industrial, whatever the asset class we're investing is. There's some assets that are just shouldn't have been built or the market moved away from them and they just changed so much that you have to have the knowledge of that you can actually fix the asset. A lot of times, and I would say we did this when we first started in 2011, you're just buying price per pound. And then you realize that it's harder to collect rent from the office tenant on Sahara and Decatur, which is our first, Sahara and Lindell was our first office purchase, than it was when we bought the building from Randy Black at Town Center 215. I was always nervous on this building at 5450 West Sahara that the tenants were actually going to pay rent. And when we bought the building at Town Center 215, no tenant ever didn't pay rent. And so you start to learn about the on that. And then we also try to build in a good margin of safety on what we expect to earn on the asset, which I'll call return on cost, and what the exit cap rate's going to be. But those are uncertain. You can think you're going to make, and I always try to, like, if my exit cap's a 7 cap, and that's what I think it is. I try to have a yield on cost or return on cost to be a 10 cap or 10% return on cost. And that gives me a cushion that if I have 300 basis points between my exit cap and my stabilized basis, that a lot of things could go wrong. And I think I still won't have, which the worst result in investing is loss of capital. And so that's kind of what I think about.
Let's talk about cost. It's always a fun subject, right? So are tenant improvements getting cheaper? And since they're getting cheaper, is there a better strategy is what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is where the developers won't ask me to come back again. So back to stress in our industry and fatigue. Just to get some context to this, we're entering into 2024 in the US, we're 540,000 workers short in our industry, in the construction industry, 540. So there's going to be a lot of upward pressure from a labor standpoint. Of course, we saw some hyper cost inflation. Lumber went from where it traditionally would be in, let's say, $400 per thousand board feet. It went up to $1,700. Now it's in the mid 500s. But we're operating at an elevated pace, so there are no deals. There may be, who knows what happens with China with their ongoing struggles in real estate and their economy. Maybe that helps us. But I think what it really comes down to is you've got to be so efficient and smart about what you do develop. You think, and I'll give examples in office. So we did, in the last couple of years, we did CBRE's office, we did Collier's office, and we just finished Newmark's office. And they were very clever from a real estate standpoint, how they laid out their office. I would submit every one of them probably shrank the footprint, but it's a more functional, useful office, a little bit of hoteling. Each one when you walk in the door, there's a boardroom that can function into a common area that you can have an event space. So I think if you think of rents aren't necessarily going to get any cheaper, costs aren't getting any cheaper, maybe the land people will give us some good news today. But that I think is what we're seeing is just people are much more creative in terms of programming their space.
So let's talk about what could stall the industry. I mean, we've got challenges, land availability, water, cost. Do you see any of those stalling or the industry in Nevada?
Me?
You're on the spot.
Well, I'll pass it to Sebastian. I'll tell you, if there's capital out there for lenders, entrepreneurs go hog wild. When that gets shut off, and this guy tells us we can't get debt anymore, that's when things go bad.
Yeah. Stalling out of those three things, I'm just going to softball that to, I don't know, but at least with costs and land availability, I guess cost of land, you can put those in an Excel sheet and it works or it doesn't, from the lending perspective at least. When it comes to water, that's kind of a more interesting thing that we get asked here and there from lenders, again, working with lenders outside of Nevada, so they just see what's in the headlines, whatever's out there. I usually have excuse me, a few points to bring up. Our high recycle rate. I think we had a panelist at some point in the last couple of years from Southern Nevada Water Association say that we were at either 98% recycle rate or something like that, topping with Singapore in the world. So that helps lenders get more comfortable. Talk about we got the first straw in the basin, so if it does start getting lower, California and Arizona will have concerns with water before Nevada does. And then I also just recently saw that, so in 2023, we were in a tier 2 water shortage, and because we had a great rainy season at the end of the year, we just moved back up into a tier 1 water shortage, which is good news for us. But if you want me to dig any deeper into water, I just gave you everything I have. So don't ask me any other questions. But yeah.
I would say it's more global events, not necessarily in our region or our state. I mean, you wake up every day. We got 2 wars going on. We've got constant tensions with China, Taiwan. You've got North Korea. We've got now a contagion maybe in the Chinese real estate market, border secure. I mean, it goes on and on. So I think, of the many things that also keep me up at night. You just think of those because those can affect us in this economy for sure.
Yeah, it's probably the unknowns that everybody in the room isn't talking about at a coffee, and all of a sudden something happens. And what's amazing to me is how quickly capital can just dry up and get scared. It happens so quick. And so, but it's probably something that we all don't talk about when we go to coffee.
So since you brought politics up, does the presidential election...
We have a primary this week.
Should we hit religion?
Yeah, exactly. No religion. Cute crowd pleasers.
Can we get a round of drinks up here?
Yeah, so I think about, like, I've never looked at the 10-year Treasury more than I've looked at it in the last, 2 years. Like, it's like every morning I'm checking it like a stock, and it's crazy that that's the way it is. But I think about, I just don't believe that the government is disconnected from the Fed, and that politics is not, I should say politics is disconnected from the Fed. And so in December, when the Fed comes out and they say, we're gonna have all these rate cuts, all my friends who run hedge funds were happy because they get paid on December 31st, and the stocks ran wild, and they made much more comp than they thought they were gonna make on December 1st. But I just believe that there's other factors out there that make people say certain things that may or may not be true, and I think the Fed is always wrong. Like, they're just not proven over a long period of time that, they're like, oh, inflation, it's transitory, it's, this is not real. So anyway, who knows? But I do think that, one party may want lower interest rates, one party may want higher interest rates. I have no control over that. So what I do try to control is just when we invest capital, just try to be super safe.
One quick follow-up to Brendan's point that the Fed doesn't know. So they have a dot plot that comes out after every meeting, and each Fed chairman puts where they think the next rate is going to be at. They're wildly wrong every time, and they're the ones in their room. So how are we supposed to know where rates are going to go? Whether that's political or not, that's just the data. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time pretty quickly here. If you guys have questions, jot them down. We're getting ready to enter that phase of it. But I did want to address the pandemic, since we're talking about things that happen globally. What lasting effects did that have on Nevada commercial real estate?
You want to take that first?
Yeah, I'll start with the funny one. This morning, I'm saying bye to I have 4 girls, and I'm saying bye to my girls and Katie, and the girls look at me and they're like, why are you so fancy today? I'm not usually dressed up going to the office. So that's one change I've seen since the pandemic, is I definitely dress more casual to work than I used to dress. But I think the whole return to work and out of office and just remote work, that's the most obvious one that you see out there. We're not scared of office. We like office. We like that people are scared of office, but it's the right office, not certain office assets. But I think that's probably the biggest thing I think about is that. And then you have this run up in rental rates, and is it going to hold or not? Those are some things I think about besides wearing a sport coat.
Well, you look great this morning, Brendan. So we're going to open it up to questions. I have a ton of questions more. We could go on for 3 more hours up here, but I wanted to give you guys an opportunity. So does anyone have any questions? Raise your hand, and Dan is going to come by.
Thank you, Connie. I do have, the audience has come strong again. I usually don't tell any behind-the-scenes pre-call information, but Brendan is so smart, he did our pre-call while on the treadmill. That's how smart he is. True story. Connie, actually, you have a question. You talk to a lot of companies personally and with your magazine. Why are you optimistic about 24 or 25? What's your take on the business side of this, not the real estate, which obviously real estate follows or starts?
Do you know, it's interesting because every year in October we go out for renewal season. A lot of our advertisers are contract advertisers, and I try to get the story. And until this last year, I was pretty cocky about it. I thought that I knew what was going on. I'm getting such mixed reviews right now, I'm not sure. It tends to lean more to the positive, depending on the industry. I mean, we're pretty broad in our editorial content, so there are some industries that run counter to everything else, like mining. Mining's doing great when the economy's down, and then, so that's how we survive. We're pretty diverse in that. But if I had to, I mean, I'm optimistic because of the people that I talk to that are a hell of a lot smarter than I am. And so I tend to lean into that, and I'm just pretty optimistic anyway.
Thank you. Hello. Sebastian, this one's very detailed, so follow me. For a stabilized industrial asset, looking at a LifeCo or CMBS vacant or loan, what would the best debt service coverage ratio be, and how would that translate to loan to value? We have a very, very smart audience. That's why that question was asked.
Yeah, I like Brendan's point. You got to sign a fee agreement for that kind of action. So life insurance company, industrial, you want to get detailed, let's talk some detailed stuff. So life insurance companies, they have rating agencies that look at their debt, and you need to be above a CM1 rating to get the best pricing. And for us in our world, that means above a 1.5 debt service coverage ratio in general. Leverage, what that comes out to, it depends. Usually it means lower. So somewhere between 55 to 65% LTV. Industrial cap rates are pretty darn low right now, and to Brendan's point earlier about neutral leverage, you are probably having still negative leverage in industrial, depending on where cap rates are. I don't, I'm not an industrial broker expert, so I don't know where those cap rates are, somewhere around 6, maybe lower, 5.5, I don't know. But if rates are 6 and 6.25 for something like that, you are hoping to get neutral and maybe negative, which really affects your LTV. In those scenarios. From CMBS, you don't have that same minimum debt service coverage ratio of 1.5. You have a lower one. It's usually 1.25 for them, and that's on a 30-year amortization versus a 25-year amortization, which has better cash flow since you're not paying off as much principal. I see eyes glazing already, so I'm just going to chill there. But life insurance company, better rates, more conservative. CMBS, higher rates, more leverage. Thanks.
Outstanding. Probably both for Kevin and Brendan. With the availability of land outside of Apex at a very low, do you see a turnaround on the urban core, some of the, the Highlands, any of the industrial markets in the center of town, like other markets have done, Chicago, Los Angeles, et cetera?
First.
And you can both answer it separately or see how the first person answers.
Yeah, I'll take it broader just on land scarcity. Yeah, it's definitely something I think about, that Las Vegas is like a 25 by 25 mile ring, and we're surrounded by national parks that, besides like leaking out to Apex, we don't have a ton of areas to expand to. It's all going to be an economic game. If you can buy an asset for land value and make it pencil and be closer to population, you will. But if you can't get there because the assets are valued too high and you need to look at residual land value, it will just keep growing out to the next suburb, whether it's Apex in Las Vegas or Trick in Reno, et cetera. But I think if the land value would be there, you're going to see that. But residential, office and retail, things that need to be more around city centers, I think we'll have a nice lift through Las Vegas running out of land. We recently purchased some assets in downtown Las Vegas, and I'm really high on kind of downtown and just that whole philosophy that we're hitting our edges on the outskirts.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I mean, and I won't speak to it from an industrial standpoint, but if you think of the office and retail, the resurgence of or the continued momentum, let's say in Water Street and Henderson, and then alone downtown Las Vegas, we have $240 million of multifamily either started or will start in the next 3 months, and so if you kind of that critical mass of services and the coolness of downtown with all the F&B that is already down there, I think it just continues to build momentum. And the folks that are making bets downtown in particular have big capital behind them. There are opportunity zone plays. One of our projects, it's a $100 million mixed use project, and they've got 70% equity in it. So, and these are smart folks making those bets. So again, I think, another reason why we should be bullish on Vegas, it's just not what we think in this room. It's, I think Sebastian said it well, it's other folks from other areas looking at us making large financial bets on Las Vegas.
Brandon? Off and on, okay. Brendan, there's a term about money on the sidelines that we've been hearing, trillions of dollars and all this stuff. When you're doing your fifth fund, what do you expect the investors to be saying about their money on the sidelines in this market only?
Yeah, I mean, they're investing with us because they hope we have an edge of operational abilities, market knowledge, deal sourcing, and their money is, when we raise our funds, they're what you call blind pool funds. You invest with us because you hope we know what we're doing, but we're not calling you saying, we're about to buy this building, do you want to come in or not? We control it. So they're hoping we do the exact same thing we've done with the last 4 funds. We thankfully have returned around 20-25% return to our partners after fees, and we've only used about 40% debt to do that in Las Vegas and Reno specifically. So really the pitch to them and what they're signing up for is just keep doing what you've been doing and be careful. And we flow back between debt and equity. So if we think the asset values are too high, we're happy to sit in debt for a little bit and earn some yield and then kind of go back and forth. But to it, there's always capital on the sidelines. There's always intelligent capital out there. There's always competitors. There's a new competitor forming every day. And I think when you look at, there's going to be some opportunities if rates are just hold where they're at, because if you look at it, there's something like $5.2 trillion of commercial real estate debt in the United States, and half of that expires before 2027, and banks, I think, hold about half of that. So you're going to have some issues to work through, and I think there's enough capital, there's enough operators out there that everybody will have a little bit of stuff to do, but who knows how much.
Something not necessarily super intelligent to that, but just on the terms that we use in our industry, talking about capital on the sidelines, flight to quality, cautious optimism. If I can give you one for the finance world that I heard that was pretty good, it was prudent but optimistic capital for this year. That's the best one I heard. Put it on a mug. That gets you fired up, hopefully, for 2024. Prudent but optimistic capital.
And Connie, if you have any questions, you can slip in any time. We always talk about retail, industrial, multifamily, the asset classes. Sometimes lodging gets overlooked, the Spring Hill Suites, the Elements, any of that. You probably 3 can all answer that or talk on that subject of what do you think their future is in this market going forward with all the tourism and more residents moving here?
I've never invested in the asset class, so I'm probably not one great to speak on it.
I'll punt that down to my friend on the left.
Is there any money for this, Sebastian?
Can you hit that one more time? What lodge?
Would you loan money on a Hilton Gardens or a Spring Hill Suites or any of that?
There's money for everything. So potentially, I don't have a ton of experience on the hotels like that in those situations, but absolutely, I can find it.
Connie, do you have anything?
I'm good. I wanted to thank these guys. I learned a lot.
We can get a few more in.
Okay.
Kevin, why are TIs higher here than your other markets?
I would say they're on par with Phoenix in particular. I think about the states we compete against. I don't think we're at a competitive advantage or disadvantage, but certainly in the urban areas. I mean, we don't build in San Francisco, but I mean, you just look at the data that comes out of there, they are very frothy. Although, TIs here, I think, Tom, we're at Incommons, we're starting at these Class A tenants are $150, $160 a foot, and we've got some that, one in particular may spend $400 a foot. That doesn't include FF&E, furniture and the like. So those are big bets. Now again, they're getting very creative with their space. So, but again, back to costs. Those costs will not be coming down anytime soon.
Yeah, I have a question actually to you on that. So when we raised our first fund in 2013, I was trying to look at construction pricing, And I found a chart online that was from like 1955 till this time was 2013. And it showed a chart of construction pricing. And the only time it pulled back was 08, 09, and it pulled back like 0.5%. And like there's a lot of cycles between 55 and 2013. So I guess my question to you is, do you really ever expect construction pricing to go down, or is like this is the new bar, and this is like death and taxes and construction is more expensive next year than it was this year?
Yes. And obviously there's many factors that go into that, but which I've already mentioned. But yeah, they won't. Labor is sticky. Those wages will not come down. So
I remember when there was the big spike in lumber, and I have a lot of friends that are builders, developers, and I would meet with them, and they're moaning and groaning, and rates were just crazy out the roof, and I'm just, oh, my poor builder friends. And then I got hit with a 25% increase and realized, wait a minute, paper is made out of wood too. And I had much more sympathy for them after. I had one other question to you guys, because everybody that I'm meeting with, whether it's in commercial real estate or finance or whatever, they're having a pretty big challenge with people. And I don't see a lot of high school students saying, hey, I want to go into real estate. How are you guys bridging that gap, and how severe is the shortage?
Well, back to lumber. So the one thing is, we didn't, in that time period where it went from 400 to 1,700, we didn't have a shortage of trees. So a bit of profit taking in that. Some floods, but not a shortage of trees. Look, we have worked, I know the folks at McCarthy, and there's a number of builders here in the room. We work very hard on our organization, AGC. It has to start at the dining room table when they're young. There is somewhat of still a stigma to get into construction, which is beyond me, because it's a very technical, high-paying, incredible career you can have. But we have to start early on, and unfortunately, we have the baby boomers starting to retire. We have done a very good job of bringing more women into our industry, which is really exciting. I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, people businesses are just tough. They are. But if you feel like you have, again, an edge and you're good at dealing with people and you can understand people, you can be really good at them. But the thing I think about more on the people side, which this is just interesting to me, I've been in the business 20 years, and I don't feel like I'm like about to retire in the business. But when we're hiring these kids, I'll call them, they're like 22 years old, what they know about technology, they've been learning since they were like 6. And I don't have social media besides LinkedIn, and I don't know, like, the people in my office always joke with me about my technological skills. Can't even say the word. And so what I've found with people is there's a stigma out there that this generation of, call it 20 to 30-year-olds they don't want to work hard, and all this. There's some really gems out there that are younger that have a knowledge that they didn't. I wouldn't invest with them to buy a piece of commercial real estate because they don't have the experience in that. But their knowledge of technology and how it advances and the speed of technology, and now with AI and for example, a job description, you just put it in OpenAI and it gives you one like this. You can edit it really quickly and be online instead of taking like 2 hours to do it. So anyway, the thing that I've really been impressed with over the last 24 months is hiring young people that don't have business experience but have crazy technology experience that I just don't have, and it's pretty cool to be coupled up with them.
Yeah, I'll say on our end, we just hired an analyst, and scooting back a little bit, just getting involved with UNLV. It's great that UNLV has the real estate program there to introduce people. I went to UNLV about 10 years ago, and I didn't even know real estate existed back then. I have a finance degree and an MBA from there, but still never even thought about real estate at that time. So it's huge that people in their 20s are already having a focus on real estate and know that exists and know that there's a market here in Las Vegas that has jobs for that. I think that's huge. But jumping back to the analyst, I think we had, and this is probably a better question for Kyle, but I want to say it was over 100 applicants for that position. So it seems like things are moving in the right direction there. And a lot of well-qualified people are looking into the industry, whether they're coming from just a general finance background like myself or just knowing real estate beforehand before they get to us.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the audience. We continue to get over 200, 250 people each time. I'd like to thank the panelists. I'd like to thank the elected officials. Remember the nice things that Kevin Burke said about the building department when your name's on the stack. So thank you, everyone. Cassie, away to you.
Very good. I'd like to hear your comment. Like, yep,
Yes, thank you. Stay up here for a photo. Thank you again, as Dan said, to the speakers and to McCarthy, our breakfast sponsor, and everyone attending this morning. What a great panel. And Jen, Sebastian was in my DLI class, for the record. I want a redo of our project now that you have all this knowledge on finance, by the way. We should have won. So if you're attending via Zoom, thank you. And please take a moment to take the survey at the end. Reminder that registration is open for ICON. ICON West is the industrial conference on the West Coast on March 11th and 12th in Long Beach. It's a great conference, quick kind of in and out of Long Beach. I was shocked to see recently how many of our members are registered, the most we've ever had. So if you have any questions about that, you can check it out online. It is a great kind of day and a half forum. And CRE Converge, the National NAIOP Convention, is here in October 8th through 10th, I believe, at Caesars Palace. So mark your calendars. I would love to see a strong showing from NAIOP at Converge. And the deadline for Spotlight sponsorships and registration is tomorrow. You do not want to miss it, February 24th at Red Rock. So Gaetana in the pink right there can help on the way out, or myself or Jonna. But yes, deadline for tomorrow, registration and sponsorships on Spotlight. We hope to see you at next month's breakfast, back to the third Thursday, March 21st, right here at the Orleans. Have a great day.